This is a love reading just in time for Valentine's Day. This goes for everyone, whether single or in a relationship. This is about love, romantic relationships that are going on in the collective right now and what you need to hear. Okay, I would advise listening to this whole thing because if certain things don't resonate, there will be something. There's some reason that you're seeing this, okay? And there's a bunch of little things that I'm picking up on. So overall, I do think a lot of you are starting to look at romantic relationships differently. It's like I used to think of them in this way, and because I've grown so much as an individual, now I'm starting to see it a different way, which can be hard because the amount of growth that you're doing, sometimes you're wanting the partners to level up to what you're to the level that you're at, right? Now, I'm getting this same thing, and I keep getting this recently about making sure that you're picking your battles wisely, okay? And I'm getting this energy here of feminine energy, the more feminine in the relationship, being manipulative in order to get their needs met. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm saying that's like very negative because I understand why you're doing it. You're doing it because that's the only way that you're able to get your needs met. And it's kind of giving anxious attachment energy because when people are anxiously attached, they will do anything they can to get their needs met because they are scared of being abandoned, okay? So some of you may resonate with that kind of energy because you may be doing it even when you don't realize that you're doing it, that you're controlling and trying to manipulate a situation in order for it to go the way that you want to. Now, I'm not saying that some of your partners are not meeting your needs. Some of them aren't. And yes, conversations need to be had about that. But you need to make sure that you're being upfront instead of doing this roundabout way. Because I feel for this. I feel for this feminine energy. I get clients like this all the time. That's why this energy is coming up, because this is who I was. It's when you were younger, you took on a lot of burdens and you had to be the good little girl or the good feminine energy that, oh, she's good. She's got it taken care of. Don't have to worry about her. And you carried that around and you still do that to yourself. And that's why you may be very hyper aware of how your partner is acting. And it's because you didn't get that when you were a kid. You really wanted when you were a kid for someone to really ask what was going on with you and to be hyper aware of your emotional states. So now when you're in a relationship, you do that to your partner. And I can see here that a lot of you are with partners that, and trust me, I'll get to the single people in a second. This is more for people that are in dynamics right now. A lot of you are in dynamics right now with people that are more acts of service based and not as heady as you. They're not as words. They're not going to be able to talk with their words as much as you're able to. You do it more by action or acts of service. And that's one of those love languages things, right? But it's also something that you have to come to a compromise or talk to each other about instead of being passive aggressive. I see a lot of y'all being passive aggressive about this. And it comes from this built up anger about past relationships, this built up anger about your childhood. I actually think a lot of these feminine energies, they're angry, and it's like bubbling at the surface, and a lot of y'all need a release with that. But it's also because I'm angry that things didn't go the way that I wanted. And I'm angry that I was abandoned because I think for a long time, y'all were kind of in a victim mindset and like feeling sorry for yourself mindset about that. But now that you've grown so much, you're kind of like working up the ladder to where now you're not as upset about it. Now you're mad, which is good because that's a healthy part of the grieving process of what would have been, what could have been. But you need to make sure that you're not taking that out on your partner. I actually think a good amount of y'all are with partners that are able to grow and change. Trust me, if I say that and you get this gut thing that that's not true, then maybe it's not true, okay? But it will resonate me saying that because I feel like some of you kind of need to take score of like, and I don't even like saying it in that way, but like contemplating the past, like looking back at the past and saying, look how much we've grown, and like sitting in that. Because I think a lot of you get stuck in the day-to-day, and again, trying to manipulate in order to get your needs met instead of being completely open and honest. And part of it too, okay, because I feel like some of you, yeah, you've had those conversations and certain things aren't changing. And it's because you're seeing the person in front of you as a flawed person instead of accepting the flawed person in front of you. Because you're a flawed person too. And yes, it might be in a different way than that person, but I'm seeing here about unconditional love. And know that, y'all, I'm not talking about people that are treating you badly. I'm talking about people that there's these little things that you wish were different, okay? You need to look at the person as, I accept what you've been through, and I understand you are the way you are because of what you've been through, and looking at them in that loving way. You need to be able to look at your partner through the lens of how God sees you. And I know that's deep, but you have to bring those glimmers. It doesn't have to be all the time, but at least once a day you give yourself that glimmer of looking at someone in that way. That completely unconditional love, that I love you just for existing. I love you for everything that we've been through. I love you for the little moments, the little moments of joy that we have. Because when you look at someone like that, you start to see the possibilities of them. You start to look at them for this infinite potential of them, that they hold that within them. It's not just someone that's way out there. They hold that within them if you're able to see it. It's almost like, it's like inner child, right? It's like looking at them as like this child that could bloom in front of you and become whoever they wanted to be, because we all can start over at any time. And again, I feel like some of you are with partners that have the ability to grow and change, but it's because you're not focusing on the growth that's already happened, or you're not focusing on the potential that could happen, and instead you're focusing too much on, I really think some of you are getting caught up on these little things, and really the little things are your own triggers, because this is needing to know when to let a fight go. This is knowing when to stop pointing the finger and putting the finger back on yourself. Okay, now, for the single people out there, a lot of these messages can translate into when you meet a potential person to date, right? Because I think a lot of you are really looking for the red flags, which is good. But because of what's happened to you in the past, because of your childhood, and because of this scared of abandonment, and I also think some of you are embarrassed on the way that you may have acted in past relationships. So you're like, okay, I'm going to do it differently this time. But because of that, you're being very hyper vigilant about the person in front of you, instead of, again, letting them unfold and show you who they are. You kind of sitting back and letting them show you who they are. Some of you are getting very like, when you meet someone, you get very like, I don't want to say attached, but it's like you're getting too close and trying to figure them out, when you kind of need to sit back and let them show you, right? I see a lot of you too are like fed up with social media, and because this is my card for social media, but it could be like dating apps. Like, I feel taken advantage of on dating apps. I feel like people don't look at me as like a person when I'm on a dating app, which makes sense, because it is kind of like you're being objectified whether you like it or not, because they're just seeing an image of you, a portrayed image that you're putting out. And I understand why that's frustrating, and I feel like a lot of you are just numbed out by that. It's like, I'm just numbed out by that whole process. But again, that's also, and I hate to be, y'all know that I hate toxic positivity, but you have to be honest with yourself, because I feel like because y'all have seen that way of dating go wrong over and over and over, it makes you not know that, like, hey, there are possibilities. You're not letting yourself see the possibilities. And I do have my pregnancy card here, so y'all know if you got readings from me, this can be metaphorical. So from a metaphorical standpoint, that can represent like letting things take time, patience, right? Babies take time to make. They don't just happen, right? They take time to make. But also, if you're not wanting to get pregnant, be careful with your birth control. And if you are wanting to get pregnant, that's a good sign for that. Now, I will say, if some of you are trying to get pregnant and something that's holding you back from that is, I feel like some of you are like numbing yourself out. And again, that comes back to this numbing thing. Like, it's almost like when y'all are just sick of hitting these road bumps. And I understand why. But it's like, I'm sick of these road bumps. I'm sick of the lessons. So I'm just going to numb myself out. And okay, the truth behind that is that it's okay to, if you need to numb, but it's the way that y'all are numbing. Like, instead of binging Netflix for hours and hours, maybe read a book instead. Like, I'm seeing like there's a different way to regulate your nervous system. Like, you're numbing out in order to regulate, and you just need a different way of doing it. Like, maybe take a bath or take a nap. Like, that would be better than what you're doing. Again, for the singles, you're gonna have to realize, like, if you have this like high standard for the type of person you want to be with, and this is where you have to be honest with yourself, am I setting that standard? Am I being that standard to myself of what I'm wanting? Okay. So, and I'm not saying just like to the person, I'm saying to yourself. Okay. Am I being emotionally available to myself? Am I being consistent with myself? I also think some of you that are in relationship right now, or in just like a dating phase, you may, and this is where I said before, like picking your battles. I think some of you get very like overstimulated or overwhelmed, and it makes you lash out. And you've got to find a better way to set your boundaries. You've got to find a better way to communicate than that. And I think a lot of you have to admit when you do that. Like, I think you'll know it deep down, like you'll know it when I say it, but you've got to be willing to apologize and like own up to when you do that. Okay, I think this goes for everyone because I literally just got 2 cards that are very similar. A lot of y'all's personal lives are going to be very fast paced coming up. And I don't know what that is. Maybe that's something astrologically that's going on, but that could mean that if some of you are in the dating phase, that dating could start going fast and that you may get swept up with someone. Or if you're in a relationship, that your personal life gets going and you start to push the relationship to the side, or it's not the priority anymore. You need to make sure that when these ups and downs of life happen, that you're still tuning in with yourself. You're still tuning in and not letting yourself get swept up in the fast pace. Because I feel like a lot of you, many things are going to be happening at once. I mean, I literally get the lovers there. You can't have a love reading without the lovers coming out. Just indicating that, and it's so funny because when I do a reading like this, I always think that I'll probably get like some kind of toxic thing. And this doesn't feel toxic. Like, this feels more like you evaluating what love is for you now, because you're past the toxic phase. You're done with that. But now you're learning, okay, how do I have a healthy relationship? Because I think a lot of you like have so much space for intimacy and like is willing to go there with someone, and there is love there in your relationships. It's just about learning how to balance like your newfound independence and how to share that with someone else, but also how to accept someone as their full flawed self, because we all have flaws. Last 2 things I'm going to say, it's making sure that you're taking your partner's perspective into account. And this is where it goes back to like inner child and parenting. Like, you know how people talk about gentle parenting and like non-coercive parenting, and look into that even if you're not a parent, because it's almost like that's how you need to be towards your partner. Like, because a lot of us, yes, we're adults, but we have those inner child aspects that are acting out, and we do revert back to those parts of ourselves at times. And it's you getting down on your partner's level and understanding where they're at in that moment, what is triggering them in that moment, and being there, not trying to figure it out. Think about when a kid is having a tantrum. You cannot try to figure it out in that moment. You're just there for them. Last thing I'll say, this is very like niche, but I feel like some of you, either in the relationship you're in now, one of your partners or your partner is going to have a lot of financial success in something. or maybe just like a gift of money that helps y'all's relationship. Or you will be getting, if y'all are, some of you are single, this is, some of you will be getting into relationships where the other person takes the weight off you financially. I'm not saying they take care of everything, but it's something where y'all get to split rent, or they take you out to dinner often, like things like that, that kind of take off your financial stress. So that's good. Last card here, you're exactly where you're meant to be when it comes to love. This is literally your guide saying you're on the right path, you're making the right choices, especially if you do what I'm saying in this reading. I hope this helped you guys. Thank you.